I ended up just losing all those in a house fire. And instead of buying more, I decided I was going to start making them. My name is Kade Daniels. I'm a knife maker, bladesmith, blacksmith, whatever term you want to use. But I make sharp, pointy things, and mostly started doing it because of a love for knives since I was a kid. So I always collected, always liked to find new ones, go to stores. That was usually what I was looking for. And when I got older, I ended up just losing all those in a house fire. And instead of buying more, I decided I was going to start making them. I figured, well, it can't be that hard to do in real life, right? YouTube says dig a hole in the ground, get your mom's hair dryer, and put air to a fire. Turns out that works. I've made a couple of railroad knives that way. Never finished them, but just hammering on them, figuring stuff out, and I just fell in love with it. Just wanted to keep doing more, always wanted to make cooler knives. I felt like for a long time, I could never make any of the ones that I was buying that I collected. It took a long, long time to get there. But now I try to make stuff that I'd never even seen before that. This shop it used to be my great-grandfather's wood shop. My great-grandmother and grandfather, Vernon and June Broadus, they moved here. I believe they bought the house sometime in the 40s, lived here until she passed, and then my cousin moved in, and a few years later I moved in and got to take over this shop. And this was his wood shop. I still have his hand planes, his vise that he used, the table that he built for it, and it's just been very cool for me to get to feel a bit of that energy here working in this place. Forged and Fire was very fun. You got to meet really cool people. It was a really cool experience. Forged and Fire, and something you got to understand about like the knife makers who've been on it and want to go on it, or even just the ones who are just knife makers, right? Most of us do it because what else can we do that is knife making related and it's like a fun competition? Most of us aren't doing it to be the Forged and Fire champion, right? And like blow our business up or anything like that. So it was just fun. That's the most I can tell you about it, right? Like I got to hang out with guys, forge stuff, and it's fun for us because usually we're making like an order, right? Somebody orders a knife and you would think, oh, we have access to just making whatever we want. Most of the time, knife makers are working on something for somebody else. So it's cool to like force you into a box, right? You have to use this steel. You have to figure it out. That's the cool part about it. Something I learned from a knife maker named Spencer Applin is at the end of the day, everything is a problem. And so if you just break the problem down and go, in this moment, what do I have to do with this steel? Figure that out and move on to the next problem. That's what was so cool about the show. This is actually genuinely one of my favorite stories about knife making. It only happened last year. So I've went to a few knife shows. There's a big one in Louisiana called the Louisiana Custom Knife Show, and they do it every year in about September. I went over there 2 years ago, first time going, met cool people, but ultimately didn't do a lot of just meandering around at different tables and stuff. And I saw this kid. He was 11 years old, sorry, 10 that year. He was 10 years old. And he had a full booth, knives on it, right? In fact, they had video on an iPad playing. That way people didn't think the parents were making the knives because people would come up and just be like, no way, right? No way. And I so bad wanted to meet him. He sold out the first day. It's a 2-day show and he sold out the first day and they went home and I didn't get the chance to go see him. So apparently they had come by my booth at some point while I wasn't there. And when I came back the next year, his parents came and found me and were talking to me, and then I got to meet him. Really, really cool dude. And at the end of the show, I had realized, like, man, I've been to 2 of these shows, and I don't have anyone else's knives to bring home with me. Again, I love knives, so I'm like, you know what, let's see if somebody will do a trade. Well, I went and asked him, because I was like, if I'm going to take anybody's knife home from this show, what about the 11-year-olds? That's so cool, And so I went to him, asked if he wanted to trade, and he was like, sure. Well, I had this knife. It's a bone-handled knife, or sorry, antler-handled knife with a mouth, like a trimmer's mouth carved into the bottom of it. And he loved it. I loved it. I didn't make that for anybody except just I thought it was cool. I watched Dune and was like, I want to make a sandworm knife, and then went and made it. And no real intentions of selling it. I just made it because it's cool. I like to put it on the table. Well, he really loved it. And I went over to his booth, asked him about his knives, and I picked out one that's just, you know, I'm going to carry it. So I wanted something that's just a small, everyday carry. And I said, all right, look at my box, see what you want. Well, he pulls that one out, and I knew he would. And he was like, what would you trade for this? And I said, well, I picked up the little everyday carry knife, and I asked him, I was like, what about this? And he's like, no, I can't do that. That's not fair, you know? And I said, look, man, if you're happy, I'm happy. Who else would be happier about taking that knife home with him? And so we made the trade, and I carried that knife with me. Sad part of this story is I lost that knife, and I have to get him to, he's making me a new one. So, but yeah, one of my favorite stories, because I was that kid that I was making knives, but this kid is blowing me out of the water, right? He is incredible for his age. I remember leaving with my wife and looking at her and going, what'll be fun is bringing this knife back 10 years from now and going, remember that? You know, somehow this was still that good and you were 11 years old. I keep doing it because I've always been I drew a lot as a kid, right? I don't draw a lot now. This is my creative outlet. I really think that everyone needs a creative outlet. We consume a lot. We don't create nearly as much. And it's really cool to put something into the world that you just thought of, you know, came out of your head and now it's real. I love it for that because I get to just make cool stuff. Like I said, I was always a fan of knives as a kid, and now I get to make the stuff that if I were a kid, I would go crazy about.